Shazow! I'm back! Oh, what? Well, you thought that catchphrase was just a joke last video? Oh, what, you thought I was just memeing? No, it's here to stay. I don't care how cringe it is, all right? I want my own bazinga. That's my bazinga. So it is officially Hollows of Ween. Maybe. Depending on when I upload this. It might be on Halloween. I don't know. We'll find out. So not sure if many people are aware, but I did take a vacation last week. A much needed one at that. We ended up going to Boston, Massachusetts and spent a lot of time in Salem, Massachusetts. You know, the place where the witch trials happen. And also something really cool, Salem is the place where Hocus Pocus was filmed. So we ended up taking pictures in front of a bunch of different filming locations like Allison's house, Max's house, even Binks's house. And also just around the town, there's so many different locations that were used in the movie. So probably when I go through the movie, I'm probably gonna point it out, be like, I was there. Because after being in Salem, we got back home, I ended up watching Hocus Pocus, and it was so cool just like seeing all the different locations that we were at that's also in the film. I also got this thing. It's a cup. Looks like a face. So anyway, let's talk about Hocus Pocus because that's why you're here. You're not here to hear about my vacation. So Hocus Pocus is honestly probably one of the most known Halloween films. Don't quote me on that, but I would say for at least family films, it's probably the most notable out of the Halloween ones. I'm pretty sure most people have at least heard of this film, and rightfully so. Now, I wouldn't really consider this, you know, a masterpiece, you know, anything insane, but it's just such a fun movie to watch. And even though it was made in 1993, like this movie still slaps today. It kept me entertained throughout. And something that I actually was very surprised by is Hocus Pocus actually flopped when it was released. It actually wasn't even until recently the Hocus Pocus really started picking up steam because it ended up getting a cult audience. And it even hit #2 in the box office on October 2020. That's like nearly 30 years. So before we get into the movie, there's something I found out about being in Boston and Salem is holy shit, Ubers are very expensive.
I can fix that.
Oh my God! It's the... Who are you again?
What do you mean? I'm the guy that, you know, I come in. I tell you a couple things about current.
You're gonna currently what?
No, not currently. I'm like current. Like I'm what I'm going to talk about.
Making no sense. But anyway, let me tell you guys about this amazing sponsor called Current.
What? I was literally going to...
Aren't you guys tired of the overcomplications when it comes to finances? Well, Current makes things quick and simple. With very customizable settings, Current makes sure your banking experience is your own. And the sponsor's also just like a really cool sponsor because like they literally just gave me a card with money on it. They're like, hey, buy some stuff, talk about how cool it is. So yeah, it's pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie. And it's safe to say that I currently am gonna be moving over to Current because I mean, personally, my bank kind of sucks right now. So make sure you guys click that link in the description. Get Current today. Trust me, it's good. It's worth it. It's honestly so streamlined and easy. I love it. Okay, enough of this Hocus Pocus. Let's get into this. So the movie starts out with Thackeray Binks, who I am going to be referring to as Jar Jar Binks. Get over it. I don't care. But anyway, we see him waking up asking where his sister is in a village I was at. I was there. I was right there. I was in front of that old-timey house. Okay. But then Jar Jar Binks finds out that Emily was actually stolen by some witches. And I remember this part kind of freaked me out a little bit when I was a kid because Emily, his little sister, literally gets like eaten or kind of like her life juice gets sucked by the witches. So Emily dies and Jar Jar Binks ends up getting turned into a cat. And a little known fact about the actor who played Emily, she turned out to be a YouTuber in the future. She ended up making parodies of like popular songs like 12, 13 years ago. And they apparently bang. Like we're talking 60 million views.
Can't deny, can't deny.
Apparently she was a big deal on YouTube 12 years ago. So I thought that was an interesting fact. And I just want to say Bette Midler, Sarah Jessica Parker, and Kathy Najimy, their trio of witches is like comparable to Three Stooges basically. Honestly, their dynamic and their comedy throughout the movie is just delicious. Which is nice that they're very comical with how they act because a lot of times the shit that they do is pretty dark and depressing and scary because, you know, they're literally eating children. But boy, do they carry this movie hard. So, you know, Emily dies, they all suck her life juice, they all stop being old, they become young. And then they turn Jar Jar Binks into a cat. So the townsfolk kind of catch wind of this and they all end up hanging the witches. But before they end up getting hanged, they end up casting a spell talking about how some virgin is supposed to light a candle down the line. Ha! Virgin! Someone who doesn't get any puss! Sorry. And it's pretty sad because Jar Jar Binks goes up to his dad, you know, in cat form, and his dad goes, "Begone, foul beast," to a cat. Did people do that back then? Like a cute little doggy comes up to you back then, "Begone, foul beast." Beast. Oh, God. So we have a little transition, a cut to the future of Salem today. And we have the teacher talking about the Sanderson sisters. And I just want to mention how this teacher's dressed. Every old lady was dressed like a witch. And I'm not talking like in costume, dressed like a witch. I mean, they just had regular witch hats and just gowns that look like witches. And I just thought that was so cool. Because normally when you see people dressed up as witches, you know, they had like that flimsy costume stuff. No, they just looked like witches. But anyway, so Max, you know, like he's the new kid in town and he's from LA. So he hears all this Halloween mumbo jumbo, or should I say Hocus Pocus, and he just straight up goes, "Sanderson sisters," more like didn't happen. He's kind of the buzzkill of the entire school. And then Allison, like a badass, ends up calling him out. And then Max, like a fucking Sigma, goes up to her while everyone's looking and he's like, "Yo, here's my num. Call me lates." He didn't actually say that, but I just imagine that's how he would talk. Oh, I was sitting at that park. I was actually sitting at that bench that they're walking past. So Max rides his bike back to his house and ends up running into the two bullies. And the two bullies are Jay and Ernie, and they're just caricatures of bullies. They're just comedic dumbos. And I hate to repeat myself, but I was in that cemetery. I was there. I was standing there. So they end up stealing his shoes, and then Max goes to his house, which I was there. Sorry, I keep doing it, but I was there. So Max is the typical teenager, like, who just moved to a new town. Like, "I can't believe you made me move here, Mom. Like, I miss LA. I want to go back." You know, just whiny teenager shit. And then we meet Danny, who is his sister, who's spying on him in the closet. It's Halloween night, and Max reluctantly agrees to take his sister trick-or-treating. You know, he's got his sunglasses on, his hat on. He doesn't want anyone to see him. He's like, "Trick-or-treating, stupid." Which I'm just saying, free candy. Doesn't matter how old you are. Hello? And then Bert and Ernie, or Bert and Ernie, I'm just gonna go with Bert and Ernie. The two bullies show up and basically just try to yoink candy from his sister, who's 8 years old. Like, these dudes look like they're in their 20s. So then they end up stumbling upon Allison's house, which... Okay, I was there and I took a picture of it. Okay, I had to say it. Anyway, they're at Allison's house and they kind of just walk in, which I don't know, maybe 1993 people just walked into strangers' houses. I'm just so thrown back by that. But anyway, they're all having a masquerade ball and they're all dressed in like 1800s attire or 19... I don't know what freaking century they're dressed as. They look old, which kind of makes me a little bit sussy because it's all adults in Allison and they're in a masquerade thing. Is this a sex party? I feel like this is a sex party. And then Max's little sister says that Max loves Allison's yabos. All right.
Well, come on, make a believer out of me.
Okay, Max, you're like, what, 16? Calm down, bud, all right? So anyway, Allison gets changed and they end up ditching the party to go to the witch's house, which apparently has been abandoned for many, many years. I assume 300. And it's confusing here because it used to be a gift shop or like a museum type dealio. And throughout this entire time, I guess no virgins lit the candle. You know, no virgins walked through here and lit the candle. Well, thank God. Thank God Max is here. So Max is about to light the candle and boom, it's Jar Jar Binks. Well, I mean, they don't know it's Jar Jar Binks yet, but Black Cat. And as Allison and Danny were about to leave, Max says,
"It's just a bunch of hocus pocus."
That's the title of the movie. So anyway, Max lights the candle, you know, him being a virgin. Cringe. Never had sex. But anyway, the witches come back to life. And I just want to mention, yes, I'm aware. Sarah Jessica Parker was probably many people's sexual awakenings. Just wanted to put that out there. I am aware. I mean, personally, I'm more of a Bette Midler kind of guy, but you know, teach their own. I mean, look at them teeth. I mean, come on. That's some questionable candy there. So anyway, the witches sniff out Danny pretty quick and grab her. And right before she gets eaten, Max comes out, you know, being the Sigma that he is. Stop! You're giving him appendicitis! But Max ends up tricking them into believing that he's like some sort of warlock or wizard and ends up setting the fire alarm off and water squirts on the ground and they freak out. And then Jar Jar Binks starts talking to Max. Why didn't you talk to anyone else? Yeah, it's been 300 years. You didn't talk to anyone? You just had to wait for the virgin? But anyway, Max ends up stealing the book while, you know, all the witches are still terrified of the water.
The boy has tricked us, and he's stolen the book. After him!
Calm down. Calm down. So one thing that wasn't very consistent in this movie is the witches not know of the modern world. Because it literally starts out that they don't even know what a road is, because they see a road and think it's like a black river of death. But then they figure out that it's a road. But later down the line, they like reference stuff in the modern world that they just wouldn't know. I mean, obviously that's kind of like a situation where at the end of the day, no one cares. You know, it's still a great movie. But if we're being picky, you know, that's one thing. Oh yeah, something interesting I wanted to mention about Jar Jar Binks is the fact that the cat and the main actor in the beginning, that's not actually the voice actor of the cat. Not only that, but they also voiced over the actor in the beginning with someone else's voice. So the dude you saw in the beginning and the dude you'll see at the end isn't actually the guy who's talking. So Jar Jar Binks shows him Billy Butcherson, the guy who I dressed up as last year. Billy Butcherson is apparently the ex of Winifred because Billy was caught cheating with Sarah, you know, the other witch. So Winifred ended up sewing his mouth shut with a dull needle and poisoning him. Epic. And then Winifred tells the other witches that they have until sunrise for them to suck the life out of all the children in Salem, or they'll die from the sun and, you know, turn into stone. So there's a little bit of an issue here that I have with the whole cemetery situation. So Jar Jar Binks tells them at the beginning that they can't go in there because it's sacred ground. But then they go in there. So then I assume, oh, they just can't touch the ground. But then he says that they can't touch them, but they do in the future. Like later on in the movie, they touch them anyway. And like later on in the movie, they also act like they can't even go beyond the gates, but they're in the cemetery now. It's kind of confusing how it works. But anyway, since they can't touch the ground, they end up resurrecting Billy Butcherson. And Billy honestly is probably one of my favorite characters in the movie. The first thing he does when he wakes up is look at his tombstone and just like looks annoyed by it. Like he's like, great, I'm fucking dead. But anyway, Winifred tells him to go chase after him and he just looks very annoyed by it, but he does it anyway because he kind of has to. And then we get a really weird scene where a bus driver just gets really sexual with all of the witches. You know, we got like a Boston guy over here, you know, flirting with the girls. He even lets Sarah sit on his lap. Very weird, very awkward, but it happens. And then Jar Jar Binks dies. Whoa, I did not want to see that. Quick, someone throw him some G Fuel. Oh, thank God he used code PIG for 30% off his order, or he'd probably be in a really bad spot. Did I just use a cat's death and resurrection as a G Fuel plug? Yes, I did. But anyway, Jar Jar Binks, you know, immortal cat who can't die, but still, as a child, still kind of fucked up to see. So all the witches end up seeing a dude dressed as the devil and just assume that, you know, that's like their daddy. And they get invited into a house. They just kind of walk in. And man, it just gives me anxiety seeing that, just how the world is with COVID and everything else now, just seeing someone just walk into someone's house, just fine. But anyway, we get kind of a funny scene with them in there. And while they're inside, a bunch of random kids just kind of yoink all of their brooms. So without any options, they end up going to their parents who are at the town hall, which I did see at Salem when I was there. But they go to the town hall and literally every parent in the entire town apparently is partying. Max's dad is dressed as Dracula and Max's mom is dressed as Madonna with the cone titties. And they're kind of telling their parents, hey, witches are after us, you know, blah, blah, blah. Their parents are like, come on, man. Come on. No, that's not possible. So Mac, in a panic, grabs the mic and tells everyone that the Sanderson sisters are back. I don't know what he was trying to accomplish there, but it didn't help because everyone just thought it was a play, an act, which obviously a normal person would. And then the Sanderson sisters kind of do a little musical number. This is one of like the most iconic scenes out of Hocus Pocus, where they sing I Put a Spell on You, and they literally put a spell on the entire crowd, making them dance until they die. And not gonna lie, the song slaps. And I find it weird because Max's parents literally see him and their daughter getting chased by a grown man who is Billy Butcherson, and they're just like, okay, it's cute. It's a grown man that you don't know chasing after them. So they end up baiting them to the high school, which I did see while I was in Salem. Yes, there was a lot of locations that they filmed at in Salem that I went to. Okay, we get it. Moving on. And then they burn them alive in a human-sized oven in a high school? Now, obviously, as a kid, I didn't really like think of the logic of this, but why is there a full-sized room that you can set set ablaze with a stereo in it. And also, why is that in a high school, and why do they even know about it or how to use it? This is very concerning. But anyway, they start jumping around and cheering and be like, yo, the curse is lifted, everybody's happy, you know, thinking that they killed the witches. But anyway, turns out all the witches didn't actually die. And then they end up running by the bullies, and then the bullies end up calling them ugly, which is obviously a huge mistake on their part. So they end up getting caged. Kind of hilarious. And then right when sunrise is about to happen and the witches are about to die, Max being a complete idiot and Allison, they open the spell book like a bunch of dinguses and basically create a spotlight for the witches to find them. So they end up finding makeshift brooms. Well, I mean, a broom, a mop, and a vacuum, which is hilarious. And they fly to where Max is. But one cool piece of advice that Allison found is that if you make a circle of salt, then they can't get to you. And I guess her version of a circle is literally just flinging salt around in a circular fashion instead of just making a circle, but whatever. They ended up yoinking Danny. And then Sarah ends up singing a song that makes all children hypnotized to walk to their witch's house. Because again, I guess every single parent that lives in Salem is at that party at the town hall. See that? I was literally right there. We have a picture right at that point. Okay, I'm sorry. I'll stop. So since they end up getting their book back, they're able to make the spell that can eat children and make them young again. So Max goes in there, and how he stops her is with knowledge. I know it's a dead meme, but I had to.
There's a power greater in your magic, and that's knowledge.
And then he ends up tricking them into believing that daylight savings time is happening and the sun's coming up. I don't think that's how daylight savings times works, but you know, whatever. So they all start freaking out that they're dying, and then Max ends up getting Danny. Max pushes over the cauldron of potion, but they were able to save one vial of the child potion. And even though they literally have a giant selection of children that she could easily take in order for her to survive, she has a vendetta against Danny because apparently Danny called her ugly, and she ain't gonna take that lightly. She's Winifred. You know, and I mentioned at the beginning of the movie where there is a little bit of inconsistencies with how they perceive modern times where they don't understand it and then sometimes they do. This is one of those times. There was times before I didn't mention it, but this is one of those times. So she ends up flying to catch up to Max, and then she asks, where's your driver's permit? Which sure, it's funny and all, but how does she know what that is? It's 300 years ago, they didn't have driver's permits. They didn't even have licenses. How does she know what that is? So anyway, they go to the cemetery, you know, to get away from them. And this is one of those parts that's confusing because they're like at the gate, but they can't go through the gate even though they were inside the cemetery earlier, but whatever. Billy Butcherson, again, one of my favorite characters in the movie, cuts open the sewing on his mouth. First word out of his mouth was wench. Calls Winifred a wench. Also, something that's really cool and kind of gross. So the moths that fly out of his mouth when he opens his mouth are actually real. Those are real moths that are flying out of his mouth. Gross. So they end up putting Danny in Billy's grave and put a salt circle around it to keep her away from them. Why didn't they just put a salt circle around all of them? I don't know. Good question. So Danny, you know, in one of them situations, she had one job. Don't leave the circle of salt. And lo and behold, she leaves the circle of salt, gets yoinked. Jar Jar Binks jumps up there and attacks Winifred. And like Alinity did, she just kind of launches the cat. And this part I don't get too because the vial is falling to the ground. And instead of Max just letting it fall to the ground and break, he just catches it. Just let it break, man. But anyway, Winifred threatens to kill Danny. And so Max ends up drinking the vial himself. So she would have to take him instead. So she starts sucking up Max's life juices, but it's a little bit too late because the sun starts coming out. And right before she could suck all of his life juice away, they all perish. And I would like to mention Winifred did fall on sacred ground, then turned to stone, then blew into dust. So I guess the turning into stone thing was witches stepping on sacred ground. So I guess they could fly over it. They can't touch them, but they can touch them, but they said they can't. It kind of makes sense. It kind of makes sense. So unfortunately, Jar Jar Binks ends up dying, you know, when Winifred launched Jar Jar Binks down. And since she died and all the other witches died, the curse is lifted. So Jar Jar Binks ends up finding Emily, and then they live happily ever after, dead, you know. Oh yeah, Billy Butcherson just kind of goes back to sleep, which is kind of funny. And also, I thought this was interesting. Hocus Pocus did tease a sequel at the end when the book's eye kind of opened again, implying that either the witches could potentially be alive still, still, or someone else might come by to take their place. Which I would just like to mention, Hocus Pocus 2 is apparently in production right now. I don't know if it has to do with the book's eye-opening or not, but that's very interesting. I don't think it'll ever be able to live up to Hocus Pocus, the original, but who knows? I mean, who am I kidding? It'll never live up to that. But there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, Hocus Pocus in all of its glory. One of the greatest Halloween films, or I guess I should say family Halloween films of all time. Of course, it has its flaws, but man, it's still a great movie. So thank you all for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel. Please go to my Twitch channel, follow me there, and watch me live stream. I normally stream every day or every weekday, and that's pretty much it. Hope you have a good one. Ugh.